Welcome to Main Street Minds with your host, Amish Munshi. This is where industry leaders and seasoned pros share their secrets to success beyond limits. Let's dive in.
Cool. Yeah. So thanks, Malur. It's great to have you on the Main Street Minds podcast. This is a platform where we educate our audience on learning more about what does it mean to be in the tech industry. And at the same time, people get to know you personally a little more than what your peers and friends might know you, right? Like people that don't know you currently, they get to learn more about you and understand more how what it means to be in the AI space and in the tech space.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Amish. Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. So if you want, can you like give a high level overview of like how you managed to reach your successful career? How did you get started and how did you reach the current stage?
Well, I don't know about a successful career, but I guess it's all relative. So, you know, to me, defining success is all about whether you're able to achieve the goals that you set up for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
as an individual at various phases in your life. Um, and most of my career has been really around trying to uh, figure out what I want to get involved in, what impact can I make, and what can I do which gets me excited about learning something new. Right. So most of my decisions around career choices, etc., have really been driven by those parameters. Um, right out of college, when I came to do my master's in Canada at Western Ontario, and I was focused on machine learning way back in 1990. Back then, AI was not such as a big a buzzword as it is today, and it was really more for the academic audience. So it was
Right.
very unless you were serious about machine learning, AI. Machine learning was a new term back then. Um, so I really enjoyed my undergrad, and so I wanted to pursue AI and machine learning because that was a up and coming area at the time. And I got into wrote a couple of papers on reinforcement learning very early in my career, and then um, before got started my PhD, but dropped out of it, and then decided to go take more of a professional career. And working at the Bell Northern Research, which was the R&D arm of Nortel, was a good way to do a bit of both, where you could experiment with your, what you had learned in college, with some practical terms. So, for example, the first project I had to do was uh, to document all the millions of lines of code that was written for the last 10, 15 years, which was all back then. There was no, it was all very think of it like Pascal, C plus plus type of C plus plus was relatively new code, which is not documented. So
Yeah.
instead of documenting it, I decided, I'll write a tool to do that. So way back in the early 90s, we wrote something called a code analysis tool and before any of these visualization tools existed, we wrote this, created a visualization tool that enabled people to quickly see what the correlations were between different
Nice.
parts of the code and how it worked. And
Yeah.
that really helped my career a lot because it was something new at the time. It was something that was not available. You can just go buy it off the shelf. And I had a great opportunity there to um, drive some significant value for the company by doing that.
Yeah, that's great. So this was all like it's amazing that you were able to do this very early in your life. Very few people get the opportunity to kind of have a meaningful impact into something a lot more productive. Uh, so I'm really amazed at how you managed to achieve that. How did you
I
get?
think it's always about experimenting and identifying opportunity when you see one. When you see a problem that's been thrown at you, do you just dive right in and try to solve it using brute force? using methods that have been done before, or do you step back, take a holistic view, which as a young person, with limited experience, is very hard to do,
Yeah.
right? Unless you've been exposed to a lot. Of course, kids these days, students that are coming out these days from universities and colleges, even high school, they've been exposed to so much more, and they're also involved in so many different things that getting that perspective is probably easier today than it was back then, right? But just being able to step back and look at a problem and say, hey, maybe just diving right into it and trying to do what others have done before is not the right approach. Is to actually see what you've learned in other areas of your life and see if you can apply that to a particular problem. And that's usually has always been my approach.
Yeah, yeah. So how does all of that translate to what you're doing right now? Like, are you able to like reuse that, or did you see like over the years you have to like relearn things? Like, do you see yourself building on top of what you were doing, or did you have to transform your career and make big changes?
I mean, I wish I could have, I could say that I planned my career, but it's hard to do that, right? I mean, you always stumble upon opportunities, and every decision point you have is around, okay, do I want to do this? Do I want to do something else? That's an
Mm-hmm,
opportunity cost you have early on in your career. So the earlier you are in your career, the more opportunities you have
mm-hmm.
to influence which direction you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Having said that, it's also, in my particular case, I've been able to come back to what I did, early in my career, back now that, AI and all that is a lot more further advanced. I've been able to come back and use some of those early principles and subsequent knowledge that I've gained, both in terms of technology as well as in terms of knowledge in the business,
Mm-hmm.
be able to apply that to solving problems that are more complex and that have a greater impact.
Yeah.
Um, using some of the using technology, using processes, using methods that you've learned, and
Mm-hmm,
being able to bring in industry knowledge, domain knowledge,
mm-hmm.
and all of that into consideration when you're and applying something you've learned somewhere else into an area where it
Yeah.
is where you may not have considered before.
Yeah, yeah. And so what does your day-to-day look like now? Like, is it are you still able to like focus on technology, or is it more of people
Yeah,
management?
no people management. I used to be. I mean, I was a people manager very early in my career, and I did that for a fair bit. Led everything from small teams to very large teams. But even though I enjoyed that and had a good built some great teams, I really enjoy being an individual contributor myself. So now I'm officially an entrepreneur. So I've after dabbling in it for several years, even while I had my corporate job, I was helping out as an advisor for a few companies, startups in the tech space. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what really got me into deep into AI in the later parts of my career, so that I could apply some of those things both in my corporate job as well as into the last 6 months, which I've been doing um,
Sure.
as a
Yeah, and
CTO for a couple of startups, and just a month ago I launched my own company. So
sweet. And how what were some of the challenges that you had? Like, uh did you decide to be an entrepreneur first, or did you find a opportunity and you said, let's figure out a way to solve this? Like, what came first?
I mean, the entrepreneur thing is more. I mean, I always wanted to, even when I was working in companies, I was always sort of I had an entrepreneurial hat on, right? I always had an entrepreneurial mindset in terms of doing things differently
Mm-hmm.
and approaching problems differently and approaching problem solving in an unconventional way, so that trying to see how you can disrupt what you're doing in a
Yeah.
even in a normal course of things. So I really got into entrepreneurship more through the advisory route, and as initially as an investor, but then helping companies build their product, helping companies identify market, how to access different markets, how to position their products in different, in different geographies, different markets. And that got me really excited about, entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is not easy. It's a tough challenge, but this particular idea is really something that stemmed about 2 years ago when I was in a conversation with a company, and it started brewing, and I kept thinking about the problem. So it's always the problem. If you think there's a big enough problem that is worth solving, if you experience it yourself or if you see others experiencing that problem and you see
Mm-hmm.
it worth solving, then the best thing to do is dive right into it and see how you can solve it using different, using whether it's using technology or whether it's using a different process, or just look at it unconventionally and try to see if you can fix it somehow. Even if you
Sure.
can fix it for one person,
Mm-hmm.
then you've added value, and then you just figure out how to scale that from one person to
And
100 people to 1,000 people to 10,000 or 100,000 and a
yeah,
million.
yeah, makes sense. And so, can you briefly explain what your company does now? Like, what would be an ideal uh customer for you? Like, what the exact problem that you end up solving now?
Yeah, I've been in stealth mode for 2 to 3 years, and it's also very interesting how it all came about. Sometimes we talk about destiny and serendipity, but it's a very. I met two of my co-founders at an event at a quantum computing event in Dallas at UT Dallas last year, where I was speaking. And it just so happened that one of them was a PhD in material science, the other is expert in high performance computing, quantum computing, and we started discussing about this particular problem. And the problem we're solving is helping companies determine how to get more value out of their materials. So
Mm-hmm.
companies that build engineer materials like for electronics, for aerospace, for there's usually they have long product cycles. They spend a lot of energy and money in building that, and then they have typically one or two applications.
Mm-hmm.
Our platform enables you to discover new applications for existing materials that you already have, so that you can utilize whatever R&D and materials that you've already done in and find new sources of revenue. And at the
Interesting.
same time, companies that are using a particular type of material, they also can find substitutes for that material that are more sustainable, more available, less supply chain risk, all of those things. So that's basically what we do.
It might be. I think you're at the perfect junction where what you're doing is going to be extremely valuable to almost anyone in manufacturing right now, right?
Correct.
So I think there's going to be a big wave of change in manufacturing happening. There's going to be a lot more automation happening just from the process perspective, but at the same time, there will be a lot more efficiency gains that can be achieved by using the products that you have.
Yeah, and what we're building is something that will, we're using very advanced combinatorial AI algorithms and assembling huge amounts of data sets and materials about materials and properties. We're able to figure out how a certain let's say silicon carbide or gallium arsenide can
Mm-hmm.
be used not just in this particular for electrical vehicle battery, but it may also have applications in aircraft assembly, or it may have
Mm-hmm.
applications in something like medical imaging or something, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
um, so that's basically the kind of the holy grail, if you will, for companies. So
Yeah.
we tackle both the front end, which is where, if you companies spend a lot of money in determining what to build that has, a revenue cycle of 2 to 3 years later, right? In automotive,
Right.
aerospace, you're
Yeah.
spending a lot of energy upfront, and you're making some bets, and we want to make sure that those bets are qualified upfront.
Yeah. Yeah, that is amazing. So, and what does your entity look like? You mentioned there are other co-founders as well with you. So, is it like three partners?
Yeah, we have three co-founders. I'm the CEO.
Okay.
I have Dr. Sirisha Kuchimachi, who's based out of Dallas. She's the COO, and Raghu, who is the CTO, and helping us build the product along with myself.
Cool.
And we also have a couple of very strategic advisors who have experience with in the aerospace industry and materials industry. So
Sweet. And I think you just recently started this, right? Like, at what phase are you right now? Like, are you
we
is
just, I mean, we even before we incorporated, we started 3 4 months ago. Initially, we were doing it as a grant to apply for a grant.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we started working on it, and then we realized that regardless of whether we got the grant or not, this was a after talking to many customers and companies, we realized that this is a problem that is worth solving, and we incorporated only last month in January. So
Sweet, nice. Congratulations. It's
thanks.
it's a big step, and I'm glad like 2025 is working out perfectly for you. Like it might be a very big year with you might be staying really busy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, busy. Staying busy is never a problem, right? When you're uh, over the years, I've had so many opportunities, and there's a lot of things you can do. I've been involved in a lot of different things. The hard part is narrowing it down to a
Yeah.
few things that you think you can focus on and create great impact.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So, like from just switching a little bit, like on from a money and a financing perspective, did you face any challenges? Did you have other venture capital, or is it all like your own investments for now?
It's right now. It's very early, so we've built a prototype. We've got a demo. We're having customer conversations. So
Mm-hmm.
we've not raised any capital yet, but we will
Mm-hmm.
be raising very soon.
Okay.
Um, so right now our focus is on building a viable product and landing a few key customers. So we're in
Sure.
the process of that. As soon as that happens, we will simultaneously start raising venture capital.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you like have the full strategy in place with where you're headed. Yeah. So, and just before we head into the next section, like can you give me like just instead of the company, like just going back a little bit to you, uh how like what do you see as like a financial success for yourself, or how has like your life been from a financial perspective? Like have you uh what were some of the things that you did uh, that helped you reach where you are? And what are some of the tips and tricks that you can share saying don't do something like it's important to do the right things, but it's also important to ensure like the wrong things are avoided, right? If you had some tips and tricks for somebody that's early in their career, uh, what they should be doing or what they should be avoiding.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their stories, right? So there are always good stories and bad stories, and when it comes to financial, uh, you know, there's it's always tricky. I mean, I've been fairly fortunate that I've done reasonably well, so no complaints there. Could I have done better? Probably. I'm sure I could have done way better than, but that's everybody's story.
Right.
Um, I think in when it comes to finances, it's a little bit about taking risks.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's a lot about taking risks and taking calculated risks. And one thing I've learned is that always spend more time doing your due diligence and analysis
Mm-hmm.
before, and then once you've done it, forget about it, right? And
Sure.
then you made that decision, you move forward, and you go ahead with that. So whether you're buying a house, you're buying a real estate property, or you're buying, or you're investing in a company. I've invested in a lot of companies, and many of them have failed. But
Yeah.
sometimes you have to. Um, I think taking those risks, calculated risks, and hedging those bets while also securing your financial future,
Mm-hmm.
through other means, more secure and predictable means, is critical. So I think a balanced approach
Mm-hmm.
sounds very cliche, but a balanced approach where you um, take some calculated risks in terms of investment while also securing your financial future is critical.
Yeah, yeah. So I think having a diversified portfolio where you have some basic needs are addressed, and then with the extra what I in the investment funds we call it dry powder sometimes, in with some extra funny money, or people use different words for it, but with that little bit of extra money that you have, you can experiment and take some more risks. So the
Yeah, I think part of it is that, especially in the current climate where employment is not really guaranteed anymore.
yeah,
Not like the old days where if you I worked for only two companies in my entire career, Nortel and Tata. So, and I think those days are kind of gone now where you have, 10, 15-year careers. I mean, there may still exist a few, but loyalty is no longer a guarantee to success,
hmm
right? And it's really more about, so you have to kind of take care of your own financials. You can't rely on government subsidies. You can't rely on pensions. None of that exists anymore. So uh, the 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 onus on financial planning falls squarely on an individual.
right.
And none of us, I certainly, as an engineer, a young engineer, was ever taught financial
Yeah.
how to manage my finances. It was all, learning on the fly, right?
Yeah. And along with the higher income that we get in tech, the responsibility of managing it actually increases, because we do over 20, 30 years, we acclaim ourselves to a very different lifestyle. And if we are not managing our passive investments in a right way, it becomes even more difficult to take care of it. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right. As you grow older, you get greater responsibilities towards your family and lifestyle, etc. Um, I've been very fortunate that my work itself took me to many different countries and travel, etc. But even then, I worked as an expatriate in Singapore and India and many other places through Nortel. So I've been very fortunate to have traveled to many different countries and have many different types of jobs and opportunities, even though I only worked for two companies.
nice.
Um, but very important to spend the time when you're young and invest smartly, or get the advice of professional
Mhm.
and figure out how you want to diversify your investments so that you have the necessary nest egg for you to survive once you retire.
Makes
Um,
sense.
and I
Yeah.
imagine that retirement is not going to look like anything what used to be 10, 15 years ago. Retirement these days just means you're doing something else.
Yeah, yeah. It just means like you are doing something that you really want to do, and you
Yeah,
like stuck with having to do something that's just falling on your lap. Like just that freedom. When I say financial freedom, I just call it saying, hey, the ability to have choices in deciding where you spend your time. I call that as almost as financial freedom by itself.
absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah, cool. So I know we are almost at time. What's the best way somebody can reach you?
I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, I usually am pretty active on LinkedIn, even though I haven't posted in the last 1 month or so. But um, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn on my email, malur@xtrium.ai,
Okay.
XTRIUM. That's another option, and just do Google my name, and you'll get plenty of options to reach me.
Perfect. Sounds great. So yeah, thanks for coming on the show and spending the time on a busy week. And I will link your LinkedIn profile down below. Thanks. Thanks, Malur.
Sounds good. Take care. Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Main Street Minds. Want to share your journey with our audience? Head over to mainstreetmindspodcast.com/guest to apply.